about, at least online, they were talking about what are the cultural works that define America. And what got me is that they said Survivor defines America. Maybe I don't know. And then some other guy was saying, "Oh no, it's No Mercy." You know the Shannon Shannon Sharp Shannon Sharp. You know what's his name? Skip Bayless show, which I used to watch. I guess they're on hiatus now because for some reason Shannon Sharp is gone. But then I thought, what are the cultural things that define America? What's on the internet defines America. Well, I mean, you take the Shannon Sharp, Skip Bayless show, Undisputed, that's the name of it, which is, like I said, sort of on hiatus now. But it really is just a version of the talk show. And I think the talk show, radio or TV, that is a cultural thing in America. You go back to, I mean, there always have been talk shows, but the earliest talk shows I recall where, a guy goes on and talks about the news or talks about life, that was like on the 50,000 watt Clear Channel station, like at KGO, WABC in New York, like in the 50s, the 40s and 50s, mostly the 50s. I mean, it was a different kind of talk radio in the 30s, 40s, but talk radio as we know it, right? The talk show, its evolution from radio to TV to the kind of polarizing thing that we see, that's a cultural thing. And now we have the internet, so you don't need a radio station. You don't need a 50,000 watt Clear Channel station. You don't even need a low power FM station. You just crack open a mic on the internet, and there you are. Audience, no audience, you're out there. You exist. It's free speech. It's about as American as it gets. And you get opportunities for a micro talk show like this one, where we just go out and we talk about the micro issues that you won't hear about today. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see anything in the newspaper today about Vincent Chin. Did you? But if you're Asian American, you talk about Vincent Chin because you say, hey, this is the 41st year after. Okay, yeah, we like to celebrate round numbers, the 40th last year. But does that mean we ignored the 41st and the 42nd? You still feel bad. You still feel like something's got to be done. You still feel like something is not yet done or complete about the fight for justice for Vincent Chin. And that's why we do this kind of show where we can talk about, the coincidence. I pointed it out yesterday. You can go to my Aldesk blog, my column there, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, aaldef.org/blog. You can also go to inquirer.net. Yesterday, Juneteenth, which is it's really kind of a weird holiday. We celebrate it, but we celebrate it because, we changed around its meaning. Because, like, oh yeah, let's put the Emancipation Proclamation right up close so Juneteenth, they're kind of like, they are related. But the fact that makes Juneteenth the tragedy is that the Emancipation Proclamation was actually signed in, 1862, right? And it wasn't until 2.5 years later that the slaves in Texas got the word that, hey, you're free. Yeah, you're free. 1865, June 19th, 1865. You were free September 22nd, 1862. I mean, that's the tragedy of Juneteenth. I mean, we want to celebrate it because we don't want to be want to be positive about it, but But the reality is, it's about justice delayed and denied until justice happened. And it took 2.5 years. And maybe that's the lesson. It takes time. So, where does Vincent Chin come in on all this? Well, as I point out, Vincent Chin was beaten, not yet to death, but beaten into a coma, June 19th, 1982. The coincidence of that. And he stayed in the coma on the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, and then the family pulled the plug. And officially, on the 23rd, in the Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, Vincent Chin did not wake up. And that's why when you get into the story, you find out about the crime that occurred where Vincent Chin was beaten, sent into a coma. Those days, between the 19th and the 23rd, they represent a moment for the community to really think about Asians in America, Asian Americans. Think about all the things that have happened to us since 1982. I mean, there's lots. And then, of course, you can go back in history, Asians in America in the 19th century, and then you've got a framework for really trying to understand how Asian Americans have been treated in the United States. And I just mean for this moment, these days, to talk about, remember the things I personally have written about Vincent Chin and about the case, and maybe have some time that people can come to, like a base people can come to and say, hey, well, here they're talking about Vincent Chin. You're not going to hear about Vincent Chin anywhere else. I mean, no one's going to talk about Vincent Chin today. Maybe, I don't know if anyone will. I mean, do people just wait until the 23rd when he doesn't wake up and when he officially dies? Because I think there's an opportunity when Vincent Chin is in a coma between the 19th and the 23rd of June to just take some time and remember and to think about not just the crime, but what it means to be Asian in America, what it means to be Asian American. I mean, it's a kind of historic moment for us. Because we know one of the things about the Vincent Chin, if you're younger and you're just discovering, who's Vincent Chin? There's so many younger people, some born here, some born in Asia, they've immigrated here, they're essentially Asian Americans. They're just discovering what Vincent Chin is about. And they're coming of age at a time when there's all these violent transgressions against Asian Americans. They're trying to make sense of what is this Asian American violence. And then when they see the things that happened during the pandemic, you have the rise of the Stop AAPI hate, that movement, that was really formed to try to stem the tide of AAPI hate. Part of the continuum that's been going on in this country. Well, you can go back 40 years to Vincent, but it's done. You go back even further. Linking the Filipinos in the 30s, linking the Chinese in the 1880s and 90s. Really, Asian American history. So, I mean, if you're on Facebook now and you want to join in the chat, you can chime in. I mean, it's very informal meditation, but it, I think it's important because, as I said, and this goes back to my initial statement about the micro talk shows, about that how talk shows are an American thing. I mean, it seems especially true when there's this kind of technology that we can, find each other, hear our voices, be a voice, be a presence in America. Because Americans in that 1982, there wasn't a presence. You know, I was a young reporter in San Francisco, and they didn't even know what the term woke was. And you know, we were just looking for our piece of the pie, as they said, right? I was a young yuppie type reporter in San Francisco, not even covering Asian stuff because I wanted to, but that wasn't they didn't give that beat to me. It wasn't even a beat. And I just remember how people suddenly they see a wire story, they saw something reported in the Times, they see a wire story about this crime in Detroit, and then they started wondering, well, I mean, it wasn't like the internet today where instantly we would know what's going on. But there was no person to turn to. There was no talk show. There was no one place where we could feel like they were talking to each other. What's going on? AAJA, the Asian American Journalism or Journalists Association, they weren't even a thing. That they were fledgling. Just started. I believe that year they had a convention in San Francisco, and we were all just wondering, well, what do we do? Who do we talk to? How do we gather? And believe me, because of the Vincent case, there was a real awakening of a generation of people who fought for civil rights all across the country. Asian American lawyers, and there was something about this case. And maybe it was the fact that the state murder prosecution, the perp, Ronald Eben, and his stepson Michael Nick were allowed to plea bargain to second-degree murder. Plea bargain on a murder charge. Given 3 years probation, fined $3,720, and never had to be jailed. Never had to be jailed. 3 years probation, but not fined $3,720. That was on the state level. And then there was a federal prosecution on civil rights charges that came up because people were outraged by the state court. And that ended in a 25-year sentence for Ronald Eben. But of course, he appealed to the Sixth Circuit, was granted another trial, and that was moved from Detroit to Cincinnati, and ended in Eden's acquittal. That's what justice is. There is no double justice. But there was a sliver of justice that was still possible because there was a civil settlement where a judge awarded the Chin family, the Chin estate, a little more than $1 million, and it's never been paid by Ronnie Vincent. That's the sliver of justice that we can hope that there's a possibility for. But as Evans ages, as Evans uses the bankruptcy laws, as Evans uses the state laws to protect himself, year after year goes by, nothing that looks like justice ends up where the student is sin. That's where we are. So how do we deal with it? Stay vigilant. Does it say that? Is there time for forgiveness? I don't know. I know some people have accused me of trying to be apologetic for Evans because I interviewed him and I let him speak. I spoke to him in 2012. And if you go to my column on the Albus blog, you'll see his quotes. He tries to make it sound like, oh, this wasn't a racial thing. It was a racial thing. And he says it wasn't, and I don't buy it. I think he's just trying to say, hey, it's not about race. Thinking that if he can say publicly it's not about race, then that takes the sting out of murder. No, murder is still murder. And I don't think he is credible when he says, oh, it's not a racial thing. All right, well, it was still a thing. It was still something that inspired anger to the point of extreme hate and rage that would bring on murder. Because when Evans should have walked away, and he admits it to me, should have walked away, when they're at the nightclub where he meets Vincent Chin at the nightclub, they get into a little altercation. The fight spills outside, and it ends. It ends there. Chin and his buddies were there on Chin's bachelor party. They walk away. Evans does. Evans steps in and go get the baseball bat. And then together, Evans and Nick hunt down Vincent. Now that, forget what he says about race. He goes to hunt down Vincent. They're looking for these Chinese Americans, the members of the bachelor party. And they find them in a McDonald's parking lot. And it goes to restrain. Chin even has the baseball bat and takes a swing. He admits it. In the interview I did with Ronald Evans, 2012. He tries to say, oh, I don't know. I'm trying to say that I shouldn't have done it, he said. I mean, it really is kind of pathetic. It sounds like certain kind of speed. I I was merely allowing him to speak up in 2012. Say, tell me about that blow. Tell me about that time you swung that bat that that hit Vincent King. And even says, I went over that 100, maybe 1,000 times in my head the last 30 years. It doesn't make sense that any time that I would swing a bat at his head when my stepson is right behind him. That makes no sense at all. Funny how 30 years, suddenly, he was clear mind. But on the night, he did it. It hit his chin. So, this is the guy who got away with murder. This is the guy who spent no jail time. The guy who was given probation on the state level and then was allowed, well, on federal hate crime charges. He was acquitted. He lost a civil case to the Kin estate and never paid them. And so Asian Americans are still looking for justice. What we're left with is this story. What we're left with is this case, this story of Vincent King, guy who was at his bachelor party, looking forward to his having, his wedding, having a family, being denied that. And then the tragedy to the entire family and to the community. Because this was weighed heavily on all of them. Because as we saw in massive, massive sampling, it could happen to all of us. In massive sampling during the pandemic. When the xenophobic rage reaches a certain level, it can happen to all of us. That's the lesson. And then the coincidence of Juneteenth as the day that Vincent King was struck and he was put to a coma. Well, in a way, it sort of gives us hope that maybe, like Juneteenth, the asynchronicity of the Emancipation Proclamation and the telling of the Texas slaves that, hey, slavery is over. It becomes a line. And then it's just maybe for Asian Americans, we'll all get a sense of satisfaction, of justice. Not just for this Vincent King, but for all cases that involve anti-Asian violence. Or at least move toward that sense of satisfaction. Certainly, by being on Vincent King's state beginning on June 19th, gives us a sense of instant solidarity, a kind of bond that maybe we can get to that place of justice, if we work together. Certainly, we have some common ground. We have some freedom that can be worked out if we work for it. So just some thoughts on Vincent Chin. This is, like I said, day 2, the day after he was beaten with a baseball bat, June 19th, 1982, parking lot, fast food restaurant, Highland Park, Michigan. And as I like to say, it just gives us an opportunity. 4 days, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, 23rd. It gives us a chance to reflect about the crime, justice, what it means to be Asian American then and now, how we can dedicate ourselves to a sense of activism, try to make things better for our community. I think at some point, I know Evans is still alive. I have no reason for him to talk to him again. As I said, I last interviewed in 2012. Actually, I did a subsequent interview 2013, 14, short phone conversation. But since then, I have not talked to him. At some point, well, I know I mentioned this, and I know that people would be upset. Do we ever consider the high road of, see, I can't even mention it. Still keeping with the family, even after 40 years. So this is why these moments of contemplation, thinking about space, have its value. Because not many people are talking about Vincent Chin today in the news. They could. They should. I was going to talk about AI. I noticed that Ted Lee, the congressman from LA, who's calling for a blue ribbon panel to look into it. Well, it's about time. Someone's got to do it. I mean, there's a lot of things in this. China, the bunking trip between President Xi and China, which really didn't do much except, I guess, what people say, it establishes a baseline. I mean, all these are things that our Asian American community should be concerned about. Because what happens in China, well, people don't make distinctions here in America between Chinese and Chinese Americans, between Asian and Asian Americans. And if there's any kind of negative towards China, it will impact us. I mean, you saw that. I mean, during the pandemic, xenophobes can't tell the difference between a Chinese American, a Japanese American, a Vietnamese American, a Filipino American. So many Filipinos caught in crossfire. So we got to look at those things and see that that's important. Those are important. And I guess one of the most important stories of the day is how there seems to be in the polls a little softening of the support to the former President Donald Trump. After all the indictments, people are coming to their senses and saying, yeah, why are we supporting these guys? I'm talking about Republicans. I mean, Republicans who, according to the two polls among GOP voters, and this is a new CNN poll, 51% say the GOP chances are better in 2024 for nominee is Trump. 51%? 49% say someone else, and the margin of error is 5.2. So it's pretty much a dead east. The Republicans are confused, but at least the Republicans now are saying, oh, something is wrong when we want a criminal to be the standard bearer of the Republican Party. Oh, excuse me. A man indicted on federal criminal charges, not convicted, just indicted. I mean, it's a bad look to Republicans. Right? I mean, these are the law and order guys. I mean, so all those things are happening today. The news says that maybe Trump will have his trial in August, which is a speedy trial. So we'll have to see. So that's what the talk is. And of course, they're trying to find that immersive vessel reported to have less than 40 hours of oxygen, and that's like a waste of time. It's kind of a terrible and fascinating story, but that's a really spot news story that fascinates people. On the lighter side, there's baseball. If you're a Giants fan, oh my God, they came back from behind yesterday and won. It's not exactly the it's not the longest streak. The Cincinnati Reds in the Central Division, they've got a longer streak, but it's got to be a Cincinnati Reds. You're a Giants fan. So look, the Giants are the hottest team in baseball. And now you know why it's important to have sports teams, because sports teams give you a distraction. When life is not going well, when the news isn't going well, it gives you something to root for. Right? But I still come back to the Vincent thing. No one's talking about it. They should sleep it because it's not over. Justice still is outstanding, and we're unlikely to ever get it. Which means the fight continues. So I'll be back tomorrow, but I'm hesitating on some other things I think about. Share something about the difference between now and back in the 80s. Something that Colin here shared with me that is on my podcast. I've been able to Takeout every podcast. I just ministry with Colin. It's very revealing about the attitude people have for these Americans. We'll talk about that. And so, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. 2 p.m. Pacific. We're here live Monday through Friday. Try to, if my internet and my power allows. I actually had a breakdown yesterday. Not a breakdown. It was a power outage. And so I couldn't go on. And I finally went on at 3:30 Pacific. And like I said, this is just a new talk show. It's in the American cultural tradition of talk radio, of opening up a mic, filling your gut, opening a vein, letting it out, talking about the news in real ways. It's the First Amendment. And what's more American than that? That's why, when the New York Times asks, well, what is a cultural example of America today? And someone points to the Bible. More so undisputed than Sharp, the Dales. Well, what is that in America? And that, an example of the modern microcosm. Hey, before we leave, let me tell you about my Emil Amok Takeout. Oh, excuse me, my Emil Amok lost NPR host found in San Francisco. My one-man show. It's on August 12th, Saturday, August 12th, 7 p.m. Thursday, the 17th, 8:30 p.m. Saturday, the 19th at 1 p.m. I'll be live at the small in the theater. It's in the Tenderloin, so don't freak out. I'll be there. E542 Taylor. Don't drive by there today. God, he's going to play there? Yeah. I'm in San Francisco. Saturday, August 12th, 7 p.m. Thursday, the 17th, 8:30 p.m. Saturday, the 19th at 1 p.m. Emil Amok, lost NPR host. It's a version of the show I took to New York in February, coming here to San Francisco. It's home. Yeah. 277 Hill. Part of the San Francisco Fringe Festival. Don't miss it. Just 3 shows. 3 shows. That's it. 3. Okay. Meditation. Surreal meditation. Start to the prairie, then to the prairie. Method. Oh, not faithful. Method. The loving kindness meditation. It starts with the phrases, over again. Show the love, whatever you want to have. That's love. That's as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be happy. May you be happy. And may you live with you. Yoga. Mahal.